Добрый день, меня зовут Ольга Дубровицкая. У нас в гостях генеральный директор LaModa Флориан Янсен. Добрый день, Флориан.
Добрый день.
So first of all, I would like to ask how do you evaluate the state of Russian market, and has some demand changed somehow in last few years, and maybe you can note some trends.
So, first of all, I think the overall macro situation in Russia is, often described as, I think, critical, and disposable income being under certain pressure. And I think that is something we generally see reflected also in the different offerings of retail. So you saw the emergence of a lot of very cheap brands when you talk about fashion in the last couple of years. On the other hand, you also see a very strong development on the other side of the spectrum. So premium and luxury seems to be actually developing very healthy. So I think that is what I can say in terms of changes in the last couple of years. And so we as a platform obviously try to reflect the market demand and have adjusted accordingly.
And how exactly do you try to reflect the state of market?
So we are obviously constantly in touch with the respective brand partners with respect to their particular assortment that they would like to represent on our platform. So we are working very closely with the brands to ensure their goods reflect basically meet the demand. The second thing is we're constantly looking for new brands. So if there are new trends emerging and new brands emerging, we are onboarding them. So that's why we see every year, so to speak, a few hundred brands coming new to our platform.
And what about consumer demand? Do you see, for example, that nowadays people prefer, in Russia, something cheaper than before crisis, or do you work with assortment somehow along with this trend?
So generally speaking, we adjust our assortment together with the demand, but we're also creating new demand on the platform LaModa itself. So as you rightly basically indicated, there's more demand on the lower end, which we obviously also offer, but it's in the DNA of LaModa to also offer real fashion. And so we basically moved a lot into additional assortment on the premium side. So we now having a quite strong offering on the upper end, which is developing actually quite strongly. And that's, I think, also reflection in the market.
You said that fashion is in the DNA of LaModa, but last year, as far as I remember, LaModa had a slowdown in revenue, and some analytics says that it is lower than the market. The pace. And they say it could happen because LaModa is still about fashion and doesn't have new categories. Could you please comment there? Yes.
So I think the first comment is that we basically were, depending on the currency that you look at, growing very slowly only on revenues, but we grew a lot faster on the net merchandise value. This is because we shifted the business model from a pure retail in the past to a mix of retail and marketplace. And so in marketplace, you count only the commission into your revenue. So that's why you see a different growth rate on net merchandise value, which was actually quite healthy and in line with the market, versus the net revenues. That said, of course, we could create more revenue streams if we would start selling general merchandise. But we have a very clear strategy not to do that. And I think when you look at Western Europe, there's a great example how this can work. So Zalando is very, very successful next to an Amazon, where basically you see on Amazon some basic stuff being sold, but real fashion is typically the destination that consumers go for to Zalando. So I think we see the same situation and for Russia. And we are very much focusing on not competing on the commoditized part of apparel and shoes where only price matters. But we basically focus on the part which requires a real expertise in fashion. And this year we see that with accelerated growth rates during Q1, and so we're quite happy that we are very disciplined towards that strategy.
What are your expectations of 2019?
So, due to our, nature of the shareholder structure, I can't disclose any numbers with you of forward-looking nature. But I think we are very confident that the 2019 expectations are met. We are strengthening the business, as I mentioned before, a lot on the premium side. We see very strong growth there. We are strengthening the business on adjacent categories such as beauty. So we actually invested quite a bit into our beauty assortment, and we'll see, I think, strong growth coming from there. Sports and sports equipment is another area in which we are seeing very good growth rates, and this is the way to further establish Lamoda as a lifestyle platform, kind of going beyond just shoes and apparel.
So, as I get, Lamoda will stay a fashion platform first of all, and fashion is in focus for Lamoda. But you are not going to launch any new categories.
Any new categories?
Yes.
As I said, so for our brands and also for our consumers, it matters to stay focused, because you lose the credibility of being a real fashion advisor if you're selling Pampers and gardening tools and books, right? So this is not what brands like, and also what actually consumers don't really think is credible. So having a very clear, distinct position is something we are, quite dedicated to, and we're quite happy about the path that we've chosen.
Lamoda start to develop offline business. And I wanted to understand why and how many stores are you going to have. Does it mean that Lamoda wants to be omni-channel and to have a store chain?
So first of all, we do believe in an omni-channel experience, but we address this need of the customers to have physical touch points with further investment into pickup points. So that is kind of the more convenient way. Typical brick and mortar stores we are experimenting with, as you rightly said. We launched the first store in Moscow. It's an experiment. We're playing around with a few things, and I would not exclude the possibility that we are building a few more stores, though there is no decision made yet when this would happen, to what extent, and also what exactly the stores would basically offer. So the time will show.
How many stores Lamoda could have in midterm, for example?
This is in a way very much dependent on what these stores should do. So if we talk about just outlets, we can probably talk about 10 or 20 outlets. That would be probably enough to cover the country and to be a healthy liquidation channel for the seasonal kind of leftovers. If you talk about a different concept where you basically bring dedicated assortment to the offline stores, there is no limit to it, right? So I think it depends. The number of stores would depend a lot on the type of store that we would like to open.
The second way you told about, it's like a retail chain, or not?
A retail chain, yeah, exactly. So you could think about it, but of course then there is no limit in a way, but...
So Lamoda consider an opportunity to build a retail chain, but no decision is taken yet? Right
now we, I think, cannot confirm that. When you look at our offline store, it is as an outlet. It's a basically seasonal clearance channel. And so more than that, we have not committed to.
As I understand, the competitive environment in e-commerce changed a lot because some joint ventures were announced with big and very rich companies. So how, in your opinion, it could change and influence the market? Is it good or bad?
So first of all, I think it's a good thing, ultimately for the consumer, that large and serious and also well-capitalized players will engage in e-commerce. For several years there was only talking, now there seems to be certain action. So I think, generally seeing positive changes for the consumers. What this means to the different segments, I think remains to be seen. We strongly believe, as I mentioned before, that there will be a lot more competition on general merchandise. So everything that you can kind of buy on a Tmall in China or Amazon in the US or Western Europe, I think all these goods will be, all these categories will be more competitive versus the past. You will see in food, I think, probably the first wave of push towards online. You will see that happening. In the past, until today, basically, food is online only to a very, very small degree. And I think this will also benefit from the engagement of the large players. And in fashion, we do believe that remains a category where specialist knowledge and specialist positioning is really helpful. So we decided to go this respective way. And we do think that the positioning of La Moda today is very sustainable and works well. But we also remaining flexible and see what the changes will bring about.
And what do you think about Russian e-commerce market from the point of Runet users? Some analytics says that the number of Runet users doesn't grow, and how companies could compete in such circumstances.
So when you talk about users, so people who are engaged on a daily basis, basically on different devices using certain service of the internet, I think you need to see what they're doing. And I think still, Russia has the largest population online in Europe, which is great. Though the penetration of retail in online is actually, very much below what you see in the West. So there's a huge potential of people using their kind of, mobile phone, tablets, etc., in addition to, social media and other services, also for shopping. And as I mentioned before, I think the engagement of larger players and the emergence of new shops in the future will probably give users more reasons to, actually perform shopping with their mobile devices. And this ultimately will help all the e-commerce companies to kind of, to grow constantly for the next couple of years. I'm actually not concerned whatsoever to see constant growth there.
And what do you think about Russian regulation in e-commerce? Is it enough, or it should be more tight? Some say that the cross-border should be lower. What do you think about it?
I think we have a very smart government, and they will understand
here in Russia,
and they will understand what needs to be done in order to grow a healthy competition locally and also internationally, and to do what's best for both supply and demand in the country. So I'm quite positive that the measures taken will generate healthy competition.
Is it comfortable now to develop business in your segment?
It's been comfortable, I think, for the last 8 years, and I don't think actually things have massively changed in either direction. So I think Russia is a country with huge opportunities when you just look at market size and also the stage of retail development. I think there are lots of opportunities, and I'm quite actually happy about being here.
Maybe you can tell us something about new projects and new ways to develop business or something like that.
So for La Moda, there are two things very, very important. So first of all is to create a hugely competitive partner experience. So to keep our core brands very, very happy and offer them services they need. On the other hand, the same thing for customers, right? So we are constantly investing in the customer experience. And I think in both directions, we're developing a lot of new things. To start with the customers first, we are investing heavily in research and development for basically new solutions on personalization, building discovery options, so to basically make shopping a real experience and not just browsing through a catalog. So there are a couple of interesting things coming up. We're also looking into services that are related to buying fashion, so you can think about stylist services, for example. So we are quite interested in looking into this kind of spheres. Without having decided to do anything concrete there, we do believe that towards the consumer, more than just purchases matter. So we can use our credibility as fashion experts in many, many more ways. And for the partners to continue that direction, we are investing quite heavily in our offering of B2B services. So basically, if you're a brand and you would like to address the Russian digital consumer, you basically can use our platform to do this in the best possible way. And so there are lots of investments happening as we speak into this B2B business part.
So thank you very much. С нами был Флориан Янсен, генеральный директор La Moda. Мы на неделе российского ритейла.